Imagine being declared clinically dead, only to return to life with an extraordinary story to tell. This is the incredible case of Velma Thomas, a woman whose journey defies science and captivates the soul. Pronounced dead for 17 hours, Velma came back with a message that stunned doctors, her family, and anyone who hears her story. What happened during those hours and what did she bring back from the other side? Join us as we delve into this mind-blowing tale of life, death, and beyond. Velma Thomas was a beloved mother and a kind soul, known for her unwavering faith and a life dedicated to her family and community. She had always been the picture of resilience, someone who weathered life's challenges with grace. But in October 2008, her life took a turn no one could have anticipated. It was an ordinary day filled with the usual routines of life when the unimaginable happened, a sudden and catastrophic event that would forever alter the trajectory of her existence. Velma was at her home in West Virginia when she began feeling unwell. At first, it was a slight discomfort, something she might have brushed off as fatigue or a fleeting ailment. However, the symptoms quickly escalated. She experienced crushing chest pain and shortness of breath. Alarmed, her family wasted no time in calling for help. Paramedics arrived quickly and Velma was rushed to the nearest hospital. The atmosphere was tense, her loved ones filled with dread as they followed the ambulance to the emergency room. Upon arrival at the hospital, doctors and nurses sprang into action. Velma's condition was grave. She was suffering from a massive heart attack, her heart struggling to pump blood effectively. Medical professionals administered life-saving treatments, defibrillation, chest compressions, and medications designed to restore her heart's rhythm. For hours, they fought to stabilize her, but her body seemed unresponsive to their efforts. At one point, Velma's heart stopped beating altogether. The room was filled with the frantic beeping of monitors and the determined voices of the medical team, who refused to give up on her. They worked tirelessly, employing every tool at their disposal to bring her back. Her body was placed on life support, and her heart was manually restarted multiple times. Yet, despite their valiant efforts, her heart continued to falter. With each passing minute, the likelihood of her survival dwindled. Doctors finally delivered the devastating news to her family. Velma's heart had stopped for an extended period, and her brain had been deprived of oxygen for too long. Even if they could restart her heart, the damage to her brain would likely be irreversible. The team performed tests to confirm whether there was any brain activity, but all signs pointed to the same grim conclusion. There was none. After hours of fighting to save her, the medical staff made the painful decision to declare Velma clinically dead. Her family was inconsolable. Velma's son, Tim, was particularly distraught. He had always been close to his mother, and the thought of losing her left him devastated. The hospital staff gave the family time to say their goodbyes. Machines were turned off, and the room fell silent as the family gathered around her lifeless body, praying and mourning the loss of someone who meant so much to them. The grief in the room was palpable, a heavy blanket of sorrow that engulfed everyone present. As the hours passed, Velma's body remained in the hospital, awaiting arrangements for the next steps. Yet, unbeknownst to anyone, something extraordinary was about to happen, something that would defy every medical explanation and leave an indelible mark on everyone who had witnessed her apparent death. The timeline of events was as surreal as it was harrowing. From the moment she collapsed to the declaration of her death, Velma's story seemed to be a tragic end to a life well lived. But it was only the beginning of a journey that would astound her family, baffle doctors, and spark conversations about the mysteries of life, death, and the human spirit. The events of that day serve as a poignant reminder of how fragile life can be, and how quickly, but for Velma Thomas, this was not the end. It was the prelude to a miracle that would captivate the world. As Velma Thomas lay motionless in the hospital, her family was thrust into a nightmare they never imagined living through. The heart attack and subsequent declaration of death had left them reeling, struggling to come to terms with the sudden and seemingly irreversible loss of a woman who was their guiding light. Velma was not just a mother, grandmother, or friend. She was the glue that held her family together, a woman whose warmth, wisdom, and unwavering faith were the cornerstones of their lives. Now she was gone, and the void her absence left was unbearable. For Velma's son, Tim, the grief was almost too much to bear. Tim was a devoted son, and his mother had been his confidant, cheerleader, and moral compass. Losing her was not only a personal tragedy, but also a profound emotional blow that left him questioning everything as he sat by her bedside. He felt an overwhelming sense of helplessness. He held her hand, hoping against all odds for a miracle. Even as the machines monitoring her body had gone silent, the room devoid of the reassuring beeps of life. The hours that followed her declared death were filled with an unbearable combination of disbelief and sorrow. Family members came and went, each saying their tearful goodbyes. Some whispered prayers, asking for strength and understanding. Others sat in stunned silence, unable to find the words to express their grief. For them, Velma was not just a relative. She was a symbol of love and perseverance, someone who had always found a way to support and uplift those around her. One of Velma's closest friends, who had been notified of her passing, came to the hospital to pay her respects. She brought a small, worn Bible, one that Velma had given her years ago, placing it on the bedside table. She recited passages aloud, hoping to bring comfort to those gathered. The scripture offered some solace, but the pain of losing Velma was still raw and insurmountable. In those moments, faith was both a comfort and a challenge. How could this happen to someone who had lived a life so filled with goodness? The medical staff too felt the weight of the situation. While they had done everything within their power to save Velma, the fact remained that medicine has its limits. Several doctors and nurses spoke with Tim and the family, explaining the extent of Velma's injuries and the steps they had taken to try to revive her. Their words were clinical, laced with terms like irreversible brain damage and no chance of recovery. But to the family, it felt as though they were hearing these explanations through a fog. No amount of rationalizing could make the loss easier to accept. Hours passed, and the reality of her death began to sink in. Arrangements had to be made, a task that felt impossibly cruel to Tim, who couldn't bring himself to let go. His mother, who had been so full of life just hours earlier, was now the subject of logistical decisions. When to transport her body, how to handle the funeral. Each decision was a dagger to the heart, a reminder that she was truly gone. Despite the somber mood, there was a palpable sense of love in the room. Family members reminisced about Velma's life, her laughter, her unwavering kindness, and her ability to make everyone feel special. Stories were shared about her strength in tough times, her dedication to her church, and her tireless work to make her community a better place. Each memory brought a bittersweet smile to their faces, a flicker of joy amidst the overwhelming sorrow. One of the most poignant moments came when Velma's youngest grandchild, who was too young to fully understand what was happening, asked, "When is Grandma waking up?" The question brought a fresh wave of tears to everyone in the room. For them, the answer was both simple and devastating. Never, or so they thought. Tim found himself grappling with anger, confusion, and a deep sense of loss. He questioned why his mother had been taken from him so suddenly. Why the woman who had been his rock was no longer there to guide him. He prayed fervently, asking for answers, for a sign, for anything that could ease his pain. In his heart, he clung to the hope that perhaps this wasn't the end, even as logic told him otherwise as the hours stretched into the night. The family prepared themselves to leave the hospital. Velma's body was cold, lifeless, and still connected to a few remaining machines that were being prepared for removal. It was the finality of it all that hit the hardest. This was goodbye, and it felt utterly unbearable. But as they stood in that room, united in grief and love, none of them could have foreseen what would happen next. Velma's story was far from something extraordinary, was already taking shape. A miracle that would defy every law of science and medicine, and give them the second chance they so desperately prayed for. For now, though, they were enveloped in their sorrow, unaware that their pain would soon turn to astonishment. The clock ticked on as the hospital settled into the quiet rhythms of the night. Velma Thomas's body lay still, her room dimly lit, a stark reminder of the fragility of life. For 17 hours, her family had grappled with the cold reality of her passing, their grief spilling out in waves of tears, prayers, and silent despair. The machines that had once fought to keep her alive were now silent, their wires and tubes disconnected. By every medical standard, Velma was gone. As the family slowly began to leave the hospital, each step away from her room felt like an act of betrayal. Tim, her son, lingered, finding it impossible to pull himself away from his mother's bedside. He had spent much of the day praying for a miracle, but as the hours wore on, even his unshakable faith began to waver. Still, he refused to leave her side completely, sitting quietly in a chair by the bed, his heart heavy with sorrow. He stared at her lifeless form, searching for some flicker of hope, some sign that the woman who had meant everything to him wasn't truly gone. As the hours passed, something extraordinary happened. It started with a small, almost imperceptible movement. a faint twitch in Velma's hand. Tim dismissed it at first, thinking it was a trick of his exhausted mind or perhaps a simple post-mortem reflex. But then, it happened again, more distinctly this time. His heart skipped a beat as he leaned in closer, holding his breath. "Mom," he whispered, his voice trembling. But there was no response and her body remained still. Moments later, a nurse entered the room to finalize the arrangements for Velma's body to be transported to the morgue. As she approached the bed, she noticed something unusual, a faint pulse on the monitor. The nurse froze, unsure of what she was seeing. She checked the equipment, thinking it must have been a malfunction, but no. There it was again, a tiny but unmistakable sign of life. Her pulse was faint, irregular, and weak. But it was there. The nurse's voice broke the silence, calling for assistance. Doctors and nurses rushed into the room, their expressions a mixture of confusion and urgency. Velma's body, which had been cold and lifeless for hours, was now showing signs of life. One of the doctors quickly checked for brain activity, expecting to find none. But to his astonishment, there were faint electrical signals. It defied everything they knew about death and revival. Tim, who had been watching in stunned silence, felt his heart leap. "She's alive?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The doctor hesitated before answering. "We're seeing something. It's faint, but it's there. We need to act quickly." Medical staff sprang into action, administering oxygen and monitoring her vitals. It was a surreal scene, the kind that most people only see in movies. Velma's body, which had been declared dead for 17 hours, was slowly coming back to life. Her skin, which had grown pale and cool, began to show faint signs of warmth. Her chest rose and fell, ever so slightly, as her body struggled to breathe again. It was as if life itself had been breathed back into her. Word spread quickly through the hospital, and soon Velma's room was filled with a mix of astonished medical professionals and tearful family members. Tim clung to his mother's hand, his heart racing with a combination of fear and hope. "Mom, can you hear me?" he said, his voice cracking. Her eyes remained closed, her face expressionless, but there was no denying that something extraordinary was happening. Doctors worked tirelessly to stabilize her, but even they couldn't explain what they were witnessing. Velma had been clinically dead for hours, her body showing no signs of activity during that time. Brain damage was inevitable in cases where oxygen deprivation lasted for more than a few minutes. Yet, her brain activity, though faint, was still present. It was as if her body had been suspended between life and death, waiting for the right moment to return. As the hours passed, Velma's condition continued to improve. Her pulse grew stronger, her breathing steadier. By morning, her body was functioning well enough for the medical team to remove some of the supportive interventions. Against every conceivable medical explanation, Velma was alive. Her family, once consumed by grief, was now overwhelmed with gratitude and disbelief. One of the doctors, clearly shaken by the experience, pulled Tim aside. "I've been practicing medicine for decades," he said, his voice filled with awe. "I've never seen anything like this. There's no scientific explanation for what just happened. This is a miracle." As Velma's body continued to regain strength, the question lingered. What had happened during those 17 hours? Had she truly been gone, her soul leaving her body, only to return? Or was there some unknown phenomenon at play, one that science could neither predict nor understand? These questions hung in the air, unanswered, but deeply felt by everyone who had witnessed her revival. For now, though, the family was focused on one thing. Velma was alive. Her return had defied the boundaries of life and death, challenging everything they thought they knew about mortality. It was a moment that none of them would ever forget, a testament to the mysteries of existence and the resilience of the human spirit. But the most astonishing part of her story was yet to come. When Velma finally opened her eyes, she would reveal a message that would leave everyone speechless. Velma Thomas' miraculous return to life had already stunned her family, friends, and the medical professionals who had pronounced her clinically dead. For 17 hours, her body had shown no signs of life, no pulse, no brain activity, nothing, and yet, against all odds, she was alive. As her condition stabilized and her vital signs grew stronger, her loved ones held on to hope that she might wake up and recognize them, though doctors warned that any prolonged lack of oxygen to the brain could result in severe impairments. What no one could predict, however, was the revelation Velma would share when she finally opened her eyes. It began slowly. Her eyelids fluttered, her breathing deepened, and her fingers moved weakly against the hand of her son Tim, who had been sitting vigil by her bedside. Tim leaned in closer, tears streaming down his face as he whispered, "Mom, it's me. It's Tim. Can you hear me?" Velma's lips parted slightly, as if she was trying to respond, and moments later she opened her eyes fully for the first time since the ordeal began. Her gaze, though unfocused at first, gradually sharpened as she scanned the room. She looked at Tim and managed a faint smile. The relief in that moment was indescribable. Tim clutched her hand tightly, sobbing, "You're back. You're really back." The room was soon filled with medical staff, eager to assess Velma's cognitive abilities. They asked her basic questions: her name, the year, and where she was. To their astonishment, Velma answered each question correctly, her voice weak but steady. There was no sign of confusion, no evidence of the brain damage they had feared. It was as though she had simply woken from a deep sleep, her mind clear and intact. Yet something about Velma's demeanor was different. Her gaze was serene, her tone calm, almost otherworldly. It was as if she carried with her a profound sense of peace that transcended her circumstances. When the medical examinations were complete, Velma turned to her family and spoke words that would send chills down their spines. "I wasn't here," she said softly. Her voice, though quiet, carried a weight that commanded the attention of everyone in the room. Tim leaned in closer, his heart racing. "What do you mean, Mom?" "Where were you?" Velma took a deep breath, as if trying to gather the right words to describe something indescribable. "I was gone," she said simply. "I left my body. I could see everything. The doctors, the machines, you praying by my side. But I wasn't in pain. I wasn't afraid. I was free." Her family listened in stunned silence as Velma described what she had experienced during the 17 hours she had been declared dead. She spoke of a brilliant light, one that was warm and welcoming, unlike anything she had ever seen. It wasn't blinding, but it seemed to envelop her in a sense of love and peace. "There were no words, no voices," she said, "but I felt everything, every bit of love. Every moment of joy I'd ever known, all at once. It was overwhelming, but in the best way." She described seeing what she believed were the spirits of loved ones who had passed away. They didn't speak, but their presence was undeniable. "They were waiting for me," Velma said, her voice filled with emotion. "I felt their love, their encouragement. It was like they were telling me it wasn't my time yet." Velma also spoke of a sense of purpose, a message she felt compelled to share. "I was told no, I felt that I needed to come back. There's so much more for us to understand about love, forgiveness, and faith. We take so much for granted here, but it's all connected. Life, death, it's all part of something much bigger than we can imagine." Her words left everyone in the room speechless. The medical staff, many of whom had witnessed countless cases of cardiac arrest and death, had never encountered anything like this. One of the nurses, visibly emotional, whispered, "I've heard stories of near-death experiences, but nothing like this. It's incredible." Tim, still holding his mother's hand, was filled with both awe and questions. "Mom, what does it mean? Why did you come back?" Velma looked at him with a calm determination that seemed unshakable. "I came back because there's more to do," she said. "I don't know all the answers, but I know this. Love is what matters. It's what connects us, what carries us forward. Everything else, fear, anger, regret, it doesn't matter in the end." Her words resonated deeply with everyone who heard them. Family members who had been grappling with grief now found themselves questioning the nature of life and death, the existence of an afterlife, and the purpose of their own lives. Velma's message wasn't just a comfort, it was a call to action, a reminder to focus on what truly matters. As news of Velma's experience spread, more people began to visit her in the hospital, hoping to hear her story firsthand. Some came seeking solace after the loss of a loved one, others out of sheer curiosity. Velma spoke to each of them with the same calm certainty, sharing her message of love, hope, and faith. Her words brought comfort to the grieving, inspiration to the lost, and a renewed sense of wonder to those who had grown skeptical of the unknown. Even the medical community was intrigued. Several doctors and researchers visited Velma, not only to understand the medical anomaly of her survival, but also to explore the implications of her vivid recollections. Was it a near-death experience? A manifestation of the brain in its final moments, or was it something beyond the realm of science? While the questions remained unanswered, one thing was clear. Velma's story was one of hope and resilience, a reminder of the mysteries that lie beyond the veil of life as we know it. For Velma, her miraculous return wasn't just a second chance at life. It was a mission. She felt a deep responsibility to share her experience, to remind others of the beauty and interconnectedness of existence. "I don't know why I was chosen to come back," she often said, "but I do know this: life is a gift, and we have to use it wisely." Her family, once paralyzed by grief, now found themselves filled with gratitude. Velma's return was nothing short of a miracle, and her message was a testament to the power of love and faith. Her words would echo far beyond the hospital walls, touching lives and inspiring hope wherever they were heard. Velma Thomas' return to life was more than a medical miracle. It was a profound moment that reshaped her life and the lives of everyone around her. In the days following her recovery, the hospital became a hub of activity. Nurses, doctors, family members, and even strangers who had heard of her extraordinary story visited her room. Eager to meet the woman who had defied the laws of nature and brought back a message from beyond, Velma, still weak but recovering steadily, greeted everyone with a warm smile and a calm presence that seemed to radiate peace. Her physical recovery was nothing short of remarkable. Doctors had initially predicted severe brain damage due to the prolonged lack of oxygen, but Velma defied all expectations. Did she regain her full cognitive abilities, but she also appeared sharper and more focused than ever before. She often remarked that she felt as though she had been reset, her mind and body rejuvenated. "I feel like I've been given a new lease on life," she said, "and I'm not going to waste a second of it." As Velma regained her strength, she began reflecting on her experience and what it meant for her future. She had always been a woman of faith, but her journey beyond death had deepened her spiritual understanding in ways she couldn't fully articulate. She felt an overwhelming sense of purpose, a conviction that her survival was no accident. "I was sent back for a reason," she often said. "There's a message I need to share, and I won't rest until I've done what I was meant to do." Her first step was reconnecting with her family. The near-death experience had brought them closer than ever before, their bond strengthened by the ordeal. Velma spent hours with her son Tim and her grandchildren, sharing stories, laughing, and reminding them of the importance of cherishing every moment. "Life is so fragile," she told them. "Don't let a single day go by without telling the people you love how much they mean to you." But Velma's message wasn't limited to her family. She felt a deep responsibility to share her story with the world, believing that her experience could bring hope and healing to others. As soon as she was well enough to leave the hospital, she began speaking at local churches, community centers, and support groups. Her message was simple yet profound. Love is the most important force in the universe, and forgiveness and faith are the keys to a meaningful life. Her speeches drew large crowds, with people traveling from far and wide to hear her speak. Many came seeking comfort, after losing loved ones, hoping Velma's story could provide a glimpse into what lies beyond death. Others came out of curiosity, intrigued by the idea that someone could return from the brink of death with a message so powerful it changed lives. Velma welcomed each person with open arms, listening to their stories and offering words of encouragement. In addition to speaking publicly, Velma began collaborating with researchers who were studying near-death experiences. She participated in interviews, brain scans, and psychological evaluations, all in an effort to help scientists better understand the phenomenon. While some researchers approached her experience with skepticism, others were deeply moved by her vivid accounts and the clarity of her recollections. "There's so much we don't know about consciousness and the human soul," one researcher remarked. "Velma's case challenges everything we think we know about life and death." Velma also felt compelled to help others on a personal level. She started volunteering at local hospitals, visiting patients who were facing terminal illnesses or recovering from traumatic events. Her presence brought comfort to many, her gentle demeanor and calming words offering hope to those who felt lost or afraid. "She has this way of making you feel like everything will be okay," one patient said. "It's like she's been to the other side and come back with a piece of that peace." As word of her story spread, Velma was invited to appear on television programs, podcasts, and documentaries. She shared her experience with millions of viewers, always emphasizing the importance of love, compassion, and faith. Despite her growing fame, Velma remained humble and grounded, attributing her survival to a higher power. "This isn't about me," she often said. "It's about the message. I'm just the messenger." Her family, once overwhelmed by grief, now found themselves inspired by her unwavering sense of purpose. Tim, in particular, became deeply involved in her mission, often traveling with her to speaking engagements and helping to organize events. He had always been close to his mother, but their bond had grown even stronger since her miraculous return. "She's taught me to see life in a completely new way," Tim said. "Every moment is a gift, and I'm not going to waste it." Over time, Velma's story began to have a ripple effect, inspiring countless others to re-examine their own lives. People who had been estranged from their families found the courage to reconcile. Those struggling with grief found solace in her words, and individuals who had lost faith rediscovered their spirituality. Velma's message of love and forgiveness resonated with people from all walks of life, transcending religious and cultural boundaries. And despite her busy schedule, Velma always made time for quiet reflection. She often retreated to her favorite spot by a nearby lake where she would sit in solitude, watching the water and praying. These moments of stillness were a reminder of the peace she had felt during her near-death experience, a peace she carried with her every day. "I don't have all the answers," she said, "but I know this. We're here for a reason. And if we live with love and kindness, we're fulfilling that purpose." As the years went by, Velma's story continued to inspire. She wrote a book about her experience, which became a bestseller and was translated into multiple languages. Her words reached people across the globe, offering hope to those who needed it most. But for Velma, the true reward was seeing the impact her message had on the lives of others. "If my story can help even one person find peace, then it's all been worth it," she said. Velma Thomas' life was a testament to the power of resilience, faith, and love. Her journey from death to life wasn't just a miracle. It was a reminder of the beauty and interconnectedness of all things. Though her time on earth had once seemed to come to an end, she returned with a renewed sense of purpose and a message that would continue to touch hearts and change lives for generations to come.